Welcome back to Teen Talk, where I talk about my life in the pandemic and life as a teen in Hong Kong during this entire pandemic. So, in episode 2, I want to talk about COVID leading up to now. And in the first episode, we talked about the introduction to COVID in the beginning, and now I think I'm talking more towards the ending of it. And I think throughout this entire COVID process, there were a lot of periods of relaxation and worsening. Overall, I think in Hong Kong it was really inconsistent in terms of restrictions being implemented and then being withdrawn within months of and throughout all these waves. And the fifth wave, the worsening of the government restrictions, was I think pretty crazy. There were quarantine sites, there was Penny Bay, introducing the self-test kits, and then obviously living in fear because I think wave 5 was the worst it had ever gotten in Hong Kong. I had never expected it to get as bad as it did. And because of that, it being so bad, there was a handful of families all throughout Hong Kong going to, I think, international schools mainly, that decided to take a step back and leave Hong Kong. Because at the time, my family especially was pretty scared that things would get really bad and wouldn't be able to leave for the summer. And it was a big intention of ours to leave over the summer and see our family because I think there were a lot of problems over here. We were getting a little bit worried because we hadn't seen our family in so long and we didn't want it to be the last time in 6th grade. So seeing them, we made the last minute decision to just pretty much poof and leave Hong Kong. On March 13th, we left and our flight was onward to California. I think it's pretty crazy to think about the fact that I left school mid-year and started doing it virtually. If I had told myself in 6th grade or 7th grade 2 years ago that I would literally be leaving the middle of the school year and doing it virtually, I would have never believed that because honestly, I think it's pretty crazy that things could get that bad that I would leave school in general. But one thing that I do think changed that our family did not expect at all was students going back to school on April 20th. They did let students go back and laws were probably brought back, which I think was a little bit difficult to see and notice because obviously I'm happy that students are back in school, but I think it's a little bit difficult, especially once everyone else got back, because in Hong Kong they all got to have time with the teacher, they all get to see each other face to face, and being back in school, I really wanted to go back, but I think I was sort of caught up and really didn't think that we would be going back, so that is why I probably made the collective decision to go. And I mean, I feel like it's a little hard to learn over Zoom. I think it was a little more simple when everyone was just learning virtually and everyone was cooped up in their own home. But it's different because now it's a little handful of families or people that join a class, whereas the rest are in person. And I think also for teachers, it's really difficult to teach a class where there are students across the world trying to learn, along with a bunch of students in the classroom. It's, I think, ultimately going to be chaos for everyone involved in the situation. So not only is it a little bit more difficult to learn, but it's difficult to teach like that. And it's an adjustment that I don't think any student or teacher would have ever expected to have to start learning how to adjust to and do years beforehand. Some teachers are really good about making sure that you were included in the class and you were learning the correct way, but then there's also a couple of times where it feels like I'm not sort of on track. I am swerving a little bit. I also think it's difficult to manage class with my time zone. I'm literally 12 hours behind, so I do school from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. And it's very difficult to do that because it feels like I'm almost nocturnal sometimes, and I think it's a really weird way of living, to be honest, which is the main thing for me. Honestly, this entire COVID experience has made me realize that your life can change so quickly in ways that are negative and are positive. I'm, again, really grateful to be here, but at the same time, am I getting the education that I really think I need? I do think coming to a close of the year, I did learn better in the first semester when I was in person, but being here was something that I was really excited to do and still am very happy about. Along with that, I'm grateful to have gotten the chance to leave and travel. A lot of people don't get to do that and don't get to see their family, which is something that I'm really grateful for because seeing all the people that I hadn't seen in so long was an incredible experience in itself. One thing that I really didn't anticipate would happen was that life would not go back to completely normal. I thought within a short amount of time, things would return back to where they were, but at this point, I think it's gonna be hard to just get everything to snap back into place and back to where it was. Another thing I want to touch on was my training, which was completely different for me. I was used to day in, day out scheduling with all these different classes, running class, swimming, biking, waking up early, and then having to leave training was one of the biggest things that was sort of pulling me back from wanting to leave. Because if you think about it, I would have to contact all my coaches, figure everything out with the team that I'm training with. And leaving, I was pretty scared because as I said in the first episode, it was completely mortifying to be independent, not go with school teams, and have to motivate myself. And I had to put in a lot of trust into myself that I would be motivated, that I would go do the exercise that I need to do to stay fit and be the athlete that I want to be. So when I came to the final decision that I needed to go and needed to sort of create a effective schedule that allowed me to do all three, swim, bike, running, at a good amount and a good pace, was difficult, and I didn't have the full faith in myself that I'd be able to do it. But in the end, I think I did pull through, and I do stick to my routine, which I'm really grateful for myself having enough motivation to go and do that. So I think what I've learned from COVID leading up to now is how much everything has changed, how my training has changed, my school has changed, seeing people, my life, my mental health, everything changes over time. And sometimes you need to learn to adjust to crazy situations, and that's something that I learned to do throughout this sort of ending era of COVID. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to the second episode, and tune in for the third episode and final episode of the pandemic segment. Bye.